Welcome to the Rue Papers.
Here we are again. I found a name for you, by the way. Pops into my head just now. Finn. It doesn't sound quite right, but it'll do for now. Finn something? Finn. There. Now you feel real to me. Hello, Finn. Have you been following closely? You might have noticed the last story I read wasn't about possession. Because that's what all the others were about. If I had any sense, I'd walk away from all this. But I don't, and what Rose said struck a chord. I have a duty. I'm not entirely sure who to. You? Finn? I mean, it's what you expect from me, isn't it? I've started, and I can't stop now. You'd be disappointed in me. I mean, why the fuck am I doing this for you, Finn? Any sensible person would have walked away, but oh no, here I am, still pouring these tales into the computer, which are messing with my mind, in this dank basement for your benefit. I hate you.
You don't hate us, B. You don't hate us, B.
No, that's not fair. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't even know you. How can I blame you? All you are doing is listening. Perhaps it really is my own fault I can't stop. I'm curious. What was Ellington trying to do? Who is the voice that came through? Assuming it's not me. Why is it so important that it is me who does this? Am I the chosen one or something? Anyway, in a perfectly sane and not at all strange turn of events, I broke into the attic with Robin. Rose was out all afternoon at some kind of library managers' conference, and so we took our chance. Despite what Robin said about it all being in my mind, he wanted to get in there as much as I did. He hates not knowing things. He's even been doing some online researches. He's got all kinds of forums bookmarked where people discuss these kind of things. Ghost stories, I mean. Creepy things. He's dropped a few clues online and he's waiting to see if anyone picks them up. Sorry. I was talking about the attic, wasn't I? I got distracted. That's been happening a lot lately. I'm a bit tired. Anyway, the mysterious attic. Once we got in, we didn't find much. There's nothing really up there. Books, dusty papers, weird scratches on the floor that might be some kind of mystical symbol, or might be scratches where the furniture has been dragged. But I did find an old book, the kind that is all brown and crackly. It was printed, though, not handwritten, which is a relief. I can't read that old copperplate handwriting. And it has a story all the way back from 1610. I mean, I know I ought to be recording the Rue Papers, but if Rue had had this, they would have wanted it recorded. So, here goes. In the year of our Lord, 1610, I, the Reverend Patrick Stark, being resident in London and of sane mind, though failing body, did choose to set down the following events and cause them to be published, to be a guide and a warning to generations after, as a warning to not meddle with devilish forces, and keep oneself pure in hopes of an eternal life. In this year, to my shame, I did find myself associating with those that did profess interest in the life beyond this one. This is an age of wonders, and after seeing a fine performance of Hamlet, we did discuss if it was true that the dead could come back and converse with the living. What could they tell us of the life beyond? A young member of our company, one Robert Ellington, did tell of a book he had stolen from Dr. D that did talk of such things, and made certain assurances about known ways to reach beyond the mortal world to the worlds beyond, and there make conversation with the dead. I should have left at this point, and yet curiosity burned within me. I do not believe the book came from Dr. D. He is a clever, if mysterious man, and at heart a good man. If he had such a book, he would have kept it well hidden. And besides, Dr. D is not so foolish as to write such a thing in plain English. The book came from somewhere else. I dare not speculate further. Ellington told us that this book had taught him that some of those that died in a certain way, fire or water, with certain words spoken as they died, and died by their own choice, as it's suicide or sacrifice, or choosing to be executed rather than confess, did not go to heaven or hell, but to a third place, the Blue Lands. I asked whether this was not, in fact, purgatory. He denied this, because the only escape from purgatory was to heaven or hell, yet those in the Blue Lands could come back to the land of the living under certain conditions. It did not seem right, he said, that those of special abilities, great thinkers or writers, should die and rot when they could achieve so much more with more years of life. I came to myself enough to say that the raising of ghosts was forbidden in the Bible, and be careful of what he expressed. He retorted that he did not speak of ghosts. Ghosts were only the first step, he explained. That was when the gateway was opened. However, with a pathway, those souls could inhabit the body of one living, criminals, or the poor, or someone whose life did not matter. I tried to say that all lives are important in the eyes of God, but one of the company demanded to know where this gateway and pathway could be found. Blood, Ellington said. The blood of one person, a gateway, and the blood of another, the pathway. And it could only happen in certain places where the veil was already thin. He was roundly mocked, as he should be, and I found myself enough to inform him that he was blasphemous. Angered, he said he would prove it, as he had discovered his own blood opened the gateway. And the pathway, we cried? He admitted defeat. He had not found a pathway. He knew of thin places, he said, but they constantly moved. He had not been successful in completing any ritual from the book, or attempting anything to come back from the Blue Lands. And yet, he paced around the room. He muttered that all should be possible by the strength of will alone. He spoke strange words. They were in Latin, but my Latin is good, and I know he spoke nonsense. Then he commanded them to come. I was afeard for a moment, but nothing happened, and we all laughed at him as a young whelp, and left him. The whispers started the next day. I heard them in my study, in the bright light of day, as my housekeeper went over the household's accounts with me. We both heard them, and thought perhaps a cat was hissing, though we owned no cat. But the whispers grew. I heard fragments of words, blasphemous words I will not write down. Then my friend, who had been with me the night of the visit to Ellington, came to visit me and complained of the same. He saw shadows, he said, patches of grey against the sunlight. We sat together and prayed. Prayer did no good. God did not listen. My friend left me before dinner. We reassured each other that no harm could come from an impetuous boy's impious belief, a clearly feigned book, and a few nonsense words. We were good men, and intelligent men, and this was not a credulous age. We left each other, reassured. My friend was dead before midnight. His housekeeper summoned me the next morning. I saw his body, covered with scratches from head to toe and a fixed look on his face of horror. He had screamed all night, his wife said. He had walked the room, banging on the walls, pleading for silence. She left him alone, not through choice, but because he begged her to find refuge in a church and pray for him. She did so, and when she returned, the door was locked and had to be broken down. I went home and searched my study to find the source of the whispers I still heard. It is surely a trick, I said. Ellington is playing games with us. Yet I found no cause. I made sure to wear my cross and gifted my housekeeper, who is dear to me, a silver cross to wear always. The whispers only grew.
Beatrice, do you know where he is? Can you hear his choice, Beatrice?
I sat up in my bed that night and listened as they whispered secrets of my life, secrets of my heart I had told no one, horrible secrets of my past, from my childhood, that I thought all but I had forgotten. Then, as I demanded they stop, as I paced the room and repeated the Lord's Prayer, I felt them touch my arm. One cold, long finger trailed its way down my forearm, and where it touched, the blood rose to the surface and broke the skin. I stumbled back and I felt it grasp my arm and whisper, "Let me in, let me in." I did not dare sleep. The next day I went to visit another friend who had been there that night, the night of Ellington's revelation. I intended to take him with me to see Ellington and demand an end. Yet I was too late. My friend was curled up in the corner of his chamber and gibbered, muttering to himself. He screamed if he was touched, and all down his arm I saw the long scratches. I stayed long enough to see him taken away to Bedlam. Then I took myself to Ellington's. I found him in his study, looking at his books. I informed him of what had happened to those that had gathered there not 2 nights before. He looked at me and said, "You shouldn't have laughed at me." "Please, I beg of you, I beg of all that is holy, make it stop." "I cannot," he said. "I told you, I can only open a gateway. I don't have the pathway to put them into living bodies." "I do not want them put into living bodies. I want you to send them back to the lands they came from." "The Blue Lands? I cannot do that either. But the gateway is closed. No more will come through." "You have released these beings into the world, and now you will not destroy them?" "Why would I? They're proving my point very effectively." "Don't worry. They can't last long in this world without bodies. They'll fade in time." "And yet one of my friends is dead and one mad. I am scratched." "Oh, they're trying to find a way in. How interesting." He made a note on parchment, as if this were merely a finding in a scientific experiment. "Send them back, I beg of you," I asked again. I clutched my cross as I did so, and he nodded at it, saying, "That won't help you." "Please, I am afraid I will die, or go mad." "Die then. if you'd rather not go mad." Then he darted at me and grasped my sleeve. "Don't you see what we are doing? We are defeating death itself. Think of all those minds wasted. We can bring them back. A brilliant mind can live forever. Those beings are monsters, not men. They are cruel and violent. Every conquest of a new world started as such. I can see a future where we are not afraid to die." He stared past me, as if he could see what was to come. "We choose our death, knowing if we do it right, we go to the Blue Lands and then come back to a younger body, a stronger body, and continue our work." "Someone else's body." "Someone undeserving. We kill criminals and traitors. We take their undeserving life and in the process destroy the body. Why not save the body and replace the life with someone worthy?" "There is nothing worthy in the demons that are coming through." "Perhaps, my dear Reverend, it is you who are not worthy." I had no words left to argue. I could only leave him to his study. I visited every church I could find on the way home, and made my confession, and prayed for peace. I have no peace. That was 3 nights ago. My study is full of whispers and shadows. I have instructed my housekeeper to take this manuscript, no matter what state I am in when morning comes, and ensure it is printed and placed in many libraries, hoping one will last the years through. I feel them grasping my arms and my legs. I feel their cold hands on me, and my blood rise to their touch. It drips on the floor. It is wet beneath my fingers. Avoid the Ellingtons. Go nowhere near that accursed family. I feel the blood in my lungs as the scratches bloom on my chest. God help us all if the Ellingtons ever find the pathway. But I am afraid that God has abandoned us. There is a publisher's note. He did not die that night. He drowned in the Thames 2 days later. A beginning, then. It makes perfect sense that someone would believe this in 1610. It fits right in with Dr. D and all that stuff in Shakespeare, but why now in 2018? Who could possibly believe something like this? And yet, here I am, believing. Because I found some evidence. I wasn't going to tell you this, Finn, but I think I should. I tell you everything, don't I? My name mentioned in the house. My voice in the tapes. My dreams. You need to know, Finn. You need to know what you are listening to. You need to know why some stories should not be read. Because I thought about what Robin said, about how the ghostly voice sounded like me, and I sat down and thought about my past, which is normally a subject I avoid. Okay. Let's do this. My parents died when I was little. I've mentioned that. Not together. My mother died first from cancer when I was 10, and my father had a heart attack 2 months later. Apparently it's a known thing, broken heart syndrome. I wasn't enough to keep him here, he had to follow her. But I could remember her voice. She had a voice like mine. And I remembered one time I was crying because I was being teased about my odd voice at school. The way I just couldn't pronounce certain things right, and I sounded babyish, they said. She told me that my voice was my heritage. All the women in our family, all the way back, she said, had this voice. Even with different accents and different backgrounds, they had this voice. I should be proud of it. there's a box of family possessions that I've never really looked into. Like I said, there's not much family. My parents were dead, and the other women, they tended to die early too. Cousins and aunts disappeared one by one. And then I found this box as a teenager. It was all that was left to me. I opened it up and found a pile of papers at the top. Commitment papers. All those women who had disappeared from my life, all those women with my voice, had been committed to asylums, institutions, whatever they called them back then. They heard things, saw things, and ended up locked up. Or dead. But what if they were right? What if they really did see things, see ghosts, hear them?
We're here. Listen to us, Beatrice.
Or
We are here.
what if I'm imagining things? What if it's a madness that's been passed down to me along with the voice? I closed the box up after that. I didn't want to know more, but a few days ago I opened it up again. There's not much. There's an old reel-to-reel tape. I sent it off to be digitized. And an old wartime ration card, made out in the name Mrs. Joan Hamilton. You remember? The psychic that Rue sent insane. I got the tape back yesterday. It was the woman I thought I heard, coming through the computer. She said her name, Jenny, and said she kept her husband under control. She kept giggling. She kept saying he couldn't do a thing without her. She needed him, and she was going to stop him. Because the tape was a suicide note. It ends with a gunshot, and then people screaming her name. What kind of family do I belong to? What's worse, that they all know the truth about ghosts and the Blue Lands and got locked up for it? Or that they're all mad? I can't hear them. I can't. They're not here. They're not here. They're not here!
Sorry, did I scare you?
No, you just made me jump. I was engrossed in my work. What's wrong?
Well, can you come upstairs and work on the desk? I have to take Elena to hospital and I can't find Rose.
What happened to Elena?
She fell down the stairs, the ones behind the fiction section. She's very dizzy and she's covered in scratches. I don't know how she could have hurt herself like that. I'm taking her to A&E to get checked out.
Okay, I'll just put this away and be up in a minute. Oh, I hope Elena is okay. I'll just switch this off and...
They're coming through. They're coming up and down and round and through the door. They're the door. They're the door. You're the pathway. You're the pathway. They're coming through.
Yes, I think I know that, Jenny. Thank you for listening to the Rue Papers. Created, written and performed by Emma Butler. Robin was voiced by Michael Dixon. If you'd like to listen to episodes early and get little extra bonus episodes, please join my Patreon. And remember, listeners, some stories should not be read.